This video is brought to you by Surfshark. Stick around to hear more about the massive discount that they are offering to our entire community. Also, locals.com, which is a Patreon alternative and will help diverge from YouTube ad revenue. This video and other future uploads will be available on that platform ad-free and in audio podcast form for monthly supporters. Now on to the movie Cuties. Netflix honestly may have just irreparably tarnished their reputation forever. I'm not the first to the party, not by any stretch. The internet has been filling up rapidly with criticism of this film, but even as the takes keep coming and the homogenous nature of those words become more and more entrenched, I still want to add my own opinion to the pile because I feel that some of these videos pull their punches, because there is an interesting problem where the film is becoming somewhat politicized. There are certain narratives emerging online, largely housed on social media, as is usually true, that describe this film as either a lightning rod of what the left wants for America, or inversely, sites like The New Yorker, who publish articles that claim Cuties is extraordinary and the hate it gets is just from far-right extremists. Before diving into what the film really is, and trust me, I'll be as meticulous as I can with the wording to maximize critical impact and offer at least a partial amount of catharsis for those who have watched this disgusting embarrassment of a movie, anyone who contributed to its creation should feel ashamed of who they are and what they did. But before that, let's underline why exactly both of these political positions are completely wrong. For starters, though a somewhat common narrative on social media, from a conservative perspective at least, will often generalize their liberal opponents as advocating for degeneracy, this movie really can't be claimed as any sort of proof of that. You have certain left-leaning publications, journalists, and op-eds praising the film, yes, but simultaneously you have Democratic Party politicians, such as Tulsi Gabbard of Hawaii, launching a scathing critique of Netflix's internal moderation. On the opposite end, the idea that hate towards this film must somehow be relegated to far-right trolls and extreme conservatives with political intentions is an open acknowledgement of personal intellectual deficiency. The movie is an abject failure, a technical abomination, and a flat-out embarrassment to civil society. Republican lawmakers and public officials such as Tom Cotton, Josh Hawley, and Ted Cruz are among those who have very publicly decried this film, with Josh Hawley even sending an official letter to Netflix CEO Reed Hastings, which correlates a previous issue within YouTube, where hyper-sexualized videos of children were being inundated with predatory comments, while the videos themselves were also monetized at the time. And the letter asks for various different metrics and explanations as to why and how this film came to be. Cuties is not available currently in Turkey after running afoul of the nation's regulatory bodies, and in many other countries around the globe, distribution of this film is rightly under threat, owing to a less tolerant atmosphere and stricter control of what is and is not allowed to be shown on streaming services in those nations. To be thorough, some of these countries have archaic or draconian regulations on societal behavior as well, which contains an entirely different set of philosophical problems to contend with. But sticking with Cuties here, the movie is controversial on a global scale, and rightly so. Before going any further, a word from today's video sponsor. As we discuss Netflix, for those that still intend to use the platform, we should also discuss licensing. An interesting scenario with licensing is that different films and TV shows will be available in different regions, and Surfshark, a VPN provider, lets you switch your region at will to engage with all of the content that is left out of your local area. You can quickly select a different country, the interface is simple, clean, effective, easy to use, so why digitally stay put in one area when there is a lot more value to be had? That's not all a VPN is good for either. You can protect your IP, your data, and your security. You can have unlimited devices on a single account, which is better value than almost any other software subscription out there that I've personally seen. And most importantly, you can get 83% off and 3 months free by using the link down below in the description. There are innumerable reasons to use a VPN rather than simply browsing from your own local home network. And Surfshark can set you up immediately to fix that. Again, link down below for 83% off and 3 months free with your order. Back to Cuties. Now is the point where we need to accurately describe the contents of the film for anyone out there who does not wish to actually see it. Conceptually, the advertising about this being a cautionary tale of hypersexualization is kind of accurate. From the most rudimentary angle possible, the film shows a young 11-year-old girl born into a family of rigid discipline and suppression of female youth sexuality, branching out and becoming very rebellious because of that restrictive atmosphere. This young girl named Ami ends up joining a dance crew with 3 other young girls who dance in a very provocative way, similar to what you might routinely see in music videos and contemporary pop culture. This kicks off a journey of rebellion and sexual exploration as she begins to become more and more bold throughout the entire process. I'll refrain from getting too graphic here, but the film very clearly, very pointedly, and without question, deliberately focuses on these young girls in a sexual way. I'm not talking narratively or conceptually, I'm talking angles, camera shots, and choreography. Twerking is a gyrating hip dance very often found in adult content, but here it is basically the entire foundation of their routines. They will be simulating adult acts on the ground during certain shows. There is a point where they forcefully pull each other's clothing down. There is a scene where Ami locks herself in the bathroom to take a very, very explicit picture and upload it online. Preceded by this, Ami effectively tries to seduce an older male family member to not get into trouble. Even worse, running tandem, another scene shows the girls being detained by security guards and twerking for them, which results in their freedom. The film is disgusting. The bulk of its dance routines are just a collage of inappropriate shots or suggestive moves to simulate acts that are entirely too explicit for their age. Keep in mind, these are very young girls. And I can't even go in depth and describe with detail how the worst scenes unfold, because it would immediately result in demonetization and probably suppression of the video for community guidelines violations. Ami continually spirals out of control, even angering the other girls in her dance crew, until finally she has a breakdown at the end and returns to her previous life from before all of this degeneracy. The message on the most fundamental level is, look at this behavior. Look really closely at it. Zoom in the camera. Look at their bodies. Look at their moves. Yeah. Look at all this hyper-sexualization. Yeah, all this stuff. Here's some more. All this. Yeah, in the end, I guess she steps back from it. The premise is legitimate. The concept is true to what Netflix has claimed. But the problem is not the concept. The problem is the execution. Senator Mike Lee, a Republican libertarian-leaning politician from Utah, flat out suggested that the film contains criminal sexual exploitation of minors. And if we really examine the technical definitions here, that claim seems to be fairly accurate. The United States has a host of legislative bodies working independently on a state level, and I'm not going to sift through all 50 states and the mountain of policies that they hold, but an immediate and very precise example would be Arizona. Statutes 13-3552, Commercial Sexual Exploitation of a Minor Classification. A person commits commercial sexual exploitation of a minor by knowingly 1. Using, employing, persuading, enticing, inducing, or coercing a minor to engage in or assist others to engage in exploitive, exhibition, or other sexual conduct for the purpose of producing any visual depiction or live act depicting such content. 2. Using, employing, persuading, enticing, inducing, or coercing a minor to expose the blah blah, super explicit, all these different things, body parts, for financial or commercial gain. 3. Permitting a minor under the person's custody or control to engage in or assist others to engage in exploitive, exhibition, or other sexual conduct for the purpose of producing any visual depiction or live act depicting such content. I see no way that this film does not violate Arizona state law. I could be wrong, I'm not a lawyer, keep that in mind, but I find it incredibly hard to believe that this film operates within the confines of the widespread United States legal code, and that is not a function of the film's conceptual premise, it is a function of the way the film was constructed. But let's expand on that. The directors of this film openly acknowledge that they spent 6 months watching 650 young girls twerk for them to find the right lead actress. These are young girls who are being introduced into a film role that contained TVMA rating actions for the adult viewing pleasure of an audience that is mandated by law to be above 18, who did not legally have the autonomy, these young girls at least, to make that decision for themselves. The decision for them to be performing these explicit actions was made by parental figures or guardians. The financial control of this transaction was not legally retained by the young girls, and the point-for-point, letter-for-letter exchange was that these children, around 11 years old, would be acting out sexually explicit scenes for the viewing pleasure of adults with a retained financial incentive for those acts in a film that is rated TVMA. Not enough? Well, the directing staff also made it a public point to host a therapist for the children, which might seem like a good idea on the surface, but it cements the question as to why they would need a therapist at all. Why should they be put in that situation as 11-year-olds in a sexualized movie rated for mature audiences? Okay, pause. I'm about to go on a bit of a tangent that does not directly relate to Netflix itself, but I want to paint a holistic picture of how suspect and disgusting this film's history is, and this part is somewhat conspiratorial, I guess, but everyone should be allowed to make their own judgments. Cuties won a directing award at the Sundance Film Festival. Keyword, directing award. Keep in mind that the concept of Cuties is not the issue here. Its directed execution is the issue. The Sundance Film Festival was founded in 1978 by Sterling von Wagenen, or however you say that, and John Earl. Sterling von Wagenen, in mid-2019, I don't care to pronounce his name right, and you'll see why, in mid-2019 was convicted of abuse pertaining to a 9-year-old girl. Now look at what Cuties is. Exploitation and hypersexualization of young girls, with a directing award from the Sundance Film Festival, which catapulted it to a Netflix national stage, global stage actually, and then proceeded to overtly sexualize children for an adult audience's viewing pleasure. I don't look at this and see something innocuous and innocent. I see a quagmire of unethical, immoral, and questionable scenarios which should make most rational human adults squirm with discomfort. It's completely laughable to view Cuties as a scathing commentary on the sexual pressures of modern society on young girls when it itself is a mainstream Hollywood example of that sexualization. It's akin to saying, well, there is a problem with child obesity in America, so to demonstrate this, we took a bunch of American children and fed them so much that they're obese now, and you get to watch it all on camera. You made a movie about a bad thing by doing that very same bad thing, and the logic behind that should not be taken lightly. There are acting tricks, directing methods, and casting decisions which could have resulted in the same story, the same message, and the same outcome without having 650 young girls audition with sexual dances over 6 months, and then producing a mainstream hypersexualized exhibitionist film with lasting, recurrent, and aggressive camera shots of the young girls' private body parts for the express enjoyment of an adult audience. There is a demographic that will binge watch this film. They will come back and pick out certain scenes and enjoy it with a huge smile on their face. And that demographic, to all of us with a rational perspective, is composed of sick individuals. Netflix actually made all of this much, much worse. When the film first hit the mainstream spotlight, it was accompanied by an accurate, perhaps even underplayed poster of these young girls in sexual poses. When the outrage began to pick up speed, Netflix apologized for the marketing and labeled it as a mistake. But that could not have been further from the truth. The result was that many people fell into the impression that Netflix just somehow released disgusting marketing, and the film itself would not be as bad. But that really, truly could not have been further from the truth. In the end, the film was worse than anyone could have ever expected. Yes, the message is fundamentally against the material that they displayed, with the main character's ultimate decision being to seemingly abandon that pathway, but the entire journey was an overtly adult display that eclipsed the poster tenfold and resulted in bipartisan congressional scrutiny, with a myriad of petitions online totaling well over 1 million signatures and climbing as of the making of this very video, as well as multi-day trending cancel Netflix initiatives and hashtags on Twitter especially, even a noticeable decline in the Netflix share price from roughly 520 at opening bell on release day to 480 as of right now. Cuties is an abject failure in every conceivable metric save one: raw number of views. But for Netflix, that's not even the primary metric behind growth. The film is a hypocritical embarrassment of Hollywood perversion, and rightly, it has been met with severe and continuing backlash. But that's it. Cuties is a film not worth seeing. A film that likely violated numerous laws in its production, a film that has spurred backlash from even the highest bodies of government, while seeing sovereign nations ban its distribution, and a film that will be used by a certain demographic of depraved viewers for what it really is. That is, deliberate, overt, excessive depictions of minors in compromising positions. If you want to support the channel, there are links down below: merch, locals, social media, and Surfshark with 83% off and 3 months free, but I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching, and have a nice night.